So if you've been around here for much time at all, you know that every now and then we do a different sort of thing on a Sunday morning where we used to call it Convos with cool folks, but that's a little hard to pronounce, so we just call it Convos now. And it's where we invite somebody that we think has a special and important voice up to just kind of have an unscripted conversation with me in front of you guys. And today you're very blessed to hear from Alex Kennedy. Alex Kennedy, his wife Destiny, run Hope Rescued here in Louisville, which is an urban ministry. Yeah, give him a hand. It's an awesome ministry. And at the beginning of Daylight, its inception, we decided we were going to give away 10 to 15% of our money every month. And so we have missionaries and organizations that we support regularly. And Hope Rescued is one that we invest pretty heavily in. Each ministry or organization that we give to gets shares, and I think Hope Rescue gets the most shares of anybody at this point. Alex, you want to come on up? Now, Alex is a rock star. I've told him many times that that's his wife that also thinks he's a rock star.
He's my rock star.
I've told him many times that I kind of want to be him on Judgment Day. You know, we just did that song about whatever you do to the least of these, you do it unto me. And this organization and this man have invested heavily in people that need a leg up in life. And he's also, like every time we get together for lunch, I have to ask him, what are you doing to rest? Because dude does not rest. He's got, 18 doctorates at this point and 12 master's degrees?
Not that many.
I thought about introducing him as His Most Holy Reverend Sir Reverend Dr. Alex Kennedy, Esquire, PhD, the fourth. But I just went with Alex. So Alex, tell us a little bit about yourself and your wife, your family. Just give us the elevator pitch version of life thus far.
Yeah. Well, Destiny's here. You'll hear her probably as loud as me, and she doesn't have a microphone. And she's awesome. We've been married. It'll be 8 years in June, which is an adventure, and we love it. And then we've got 3 lovely kids. If you tripped on a kid on your way in, it was probably one of ours because they don't have any boundaries. David is 6, Bethany is 4, Hezekiah is 3. And they act like they're 16 one moment and 1 the next, and we have no idea what's happening. And yeah, I always say I'm blessed with the coolest job in the world because I just get to do what I love every day. And we love people, and hopefully we love them well. It's certainly the goal.
Tell us a little bit about your history before coming to Louisville and why Louisville.
Yeah. So we served in Phoenix, Arizona for 2 years before Louisville. Prior to that, I was in college and worked on a VA grant with homeless veterans. And then the last 2 years in Phoenix, we specifically worked in anti-cartel trafficking and homelessness, kind of overlapping. And so we fell in love with the work. Destiny is a survivor of human trafficking, and so we certainly have a component there that influences us personally. And then 2 years in Phoenix doing it, felt the Lord begin to tug on our hearts that we were going to move somewhere else, prayed over a list of cities, and Destiny and I separately, because we'll influence each other. We wouldn't tell each other any city. We wouldn't give each other any hint of what's on your list. And so we come together about a week later after having that conversation, and each had listed 5 cities. Only city on both lists is Louisville, Kentucky, which neither of us knew where Louisville was. I knew Louisville, my senior year in high school, won the NCAA championship, which I hated because I'm an Arizona Wildcats fan, and so I was like, I hate them. But besides that, that was it. That was my Louisville experience, was man, they beat us. And so we flew out here. We were here about 4 hours, and I'm a dork and had looked at all the statistics, and we were like, that's it, we're moving. Sold our house, moved to Louisville 45 days later with no friends and nobody that we knew, and just went.
Now, I'm right in thinking you have multiple degrees at this point?
Yeah, not multiple PhDs.
So if I ask you directly, you're allowed to brag about yourself. So tell us about that.
Yeah. So my wife calls me the biggest nerd on planet Earth. The nice thing is when you're in the seminary world, I've learned I'm not quite the biggest nerd on planet Earth. But I do have 5 college degrees. The associates doesn't count because it's just on the way to the bachelor's. But then I have 2 master's degrees and a doctorate. So the doctorate's the one I brag about because it's the one that actually took a lot of work. Not that the others don't, but it's also very specialized. And so it's a doctor of ministry in leadership and creative communication. But I wrote my dissertation on working with high trauma populations such as homelessness and trafficking and the impact it has on families and workers.
I remember you did that since you moved to Louisville. You finished that up because that was a pretty rough time in your life. You had all the ministry stuff going on and family stuff going on and trying to get your doctorate at the same time. That was a challenging time.
I could have timed that better. I had signed up for my doctorate, my doctoral program 2 weeks before my wife and I had the conversation of like, we think we're supposed to move. So I actually started the week after we sold our house in Arizona.
Wow.
So we sold our house, moved everything into storage. I flew to Texas because I had to be in person for the first class, was there a week, flew back and drove the my truck and trailer all the way to Louisville. So right in the middle of starting everything.
Like I said, you're allowed to brag on yourself when asked directly, and I just wanted to ask that stuff because I've watched Alex and his wife work really hard at this ministry. They, again, we play a song called "The Least of These," and we talk about reaching people in homelessness and addiction and trafficking, and it's something the church talks about a lot. But this is a couple and a family and an organization that's actually doing it and doing it at great sacrifice. And so I wanted to brag on you for a minute. Tell us about Hope Rescue. Tell us what you do. I know there's many arms of the ministry, but
the elevator pitch version. So
we got time.
I got time. Okay. Well, don't tempt me. Hope Rescued at its core kind of falls under what we call the urban crisis umbrella. So when you look at urban crisis, because people are like, well, homelessness, human trafficking, how do those connect? Well, they connect a ton because 48% of women who are in unsheltered homelessness more than 2 weeks are sexually exploited. So suddenly there's a ton of overlap between homelessness and sexual trafficking and exploitation. We deal with homelessness, sex trafficking, and exploitation. We deal with a lot of food insecurity at this point, which is really exciting. And now we are branching into a lot of the youth and children's development space, prevention those types of things. So the homeless side runs now 5 homeless outreaches every single week. We feed about 150 to 200 people every time we're out. So they're providing between 800 and 1,000 meals a week across our community, loving on homeless people. I wrote my dissertation theology part on the Good Samaritan story. So when we go out, it's, hey, we want to love you. We want to bandage wounds. We want to feed you where you're at. But also, how do we get you into a solution? And so we now partner with about 30 organizations that help people into solutions, from addiction recovery to domestic violence programs to anti-trafficking to jobs and stabilization. And we've facilitated the ones that we've been able to track, because there's people we've helped along the way that probably took phone numbers and resources and went and did it and never told us. But we've helped with what we've tracked a little over 550 people out of homelessness, trafficking, domestic violence in the last 4 years into solutions. So that's the homeless wing. Ooh, I got excited or something. The anti-trafficking is, I think, probably one of those just core things. It's one of those, we don't do it because we are like, yeah, this is something we're passionate about. It's almost like we do it because it's something that we're made for. I'm passionate about helping people in homelessness. I love our homeless population in this city. I know most of them by name at this point. If the Lord told me to leave it tomorrow, it would break my heart, but I'd say yes. I think if he told me to stop doing anti-trafficking work, I wouldn't know what to do with myself. Mm-hmm. So many of the ladies we serve, we hear like, oh, I gave up hope a long time ago. Nobody cares about me. Yeah. And I feel like on the homeless end, if it would devastate me, but if we pulled back, well, there's a lot of churches and a lot of outreaches and a lot of people doing those things. When I look at our trafficking side, there's nobody. We don't run into any other organizations and be like, hey, buddy, how's it going? We're out, 5 times a week with homelessness. We run into other organizations. We have partnerships and all that. So our anti-trafficking team goes out every week into the back alleys, onto street corners. It's messy. And we really do deal with a variety of everything from street corner prostitution, where they're being exploited, maybe by themselves, maybe by a gang, maybe for drugs, whatever it is, all the way to, we had a young lady that we pulled out a few months ago that disclosed she was trafficked into the country as a high-end escort over national lines. And so we when I say variety, it's everything in between. But just finding women out in those areas and telling them, hey, there's hope, and we can help you, and we can work through the trauma, and we can connect with a therapist, and we can connect with programs that'll help you. Our anti-trafficking arm added a women's drop-in space this November, which is super exciting. And so we have a space that's open 3 days a week for 5 hours at a time that women can come in and get a hot meal, they can get clothes, they can get hygiene products, they can take showers, which is a huge win. And then we just have space they can hang out. They can hang out and read a book all day if they want. They can take a nap on the couch. They can sign up to earn their GED on our campus, and we partner with JCPS to work on education. We've housed people, we've gotten jobs, all of those things to pull women out. And we have a lot of overlapping domestic violence that just kind of came birthed out of that. Because when you open a safe space for women, thankfully other women will be like, well, I'm not trafficked, but I'll take a safe space. And so we've seen that grow. And then we do the food insecurity side. That's the one a lot of people understand, so I won't talk long about it. Obviously, 1,000 meals a week into homeless encampments. We feed our trafficking victims, but we also run a free indoor food market where people can come in and shop for food and select what they want rather than just be handed a box. And so we serve about 130 families a week right now, facing food insecurity, food, clothing, and all of those essential supplies while they continue to maintain what they need.
So my understanding is that Derby Week in Louisville is comparable to the Super Bowl as far as trafficking.
It's a worthy comparison. Most estimates that I look at, that I've talked to other organizations, say we're probably the #1 sex trafficking and exploitation city in the country this week.
People don't feel that. I actually, I can say for myself, that feels distant to me. Mm-hmm. Like how could that? Because I feel like I have a pretty good grasp on what Louisville is like. I know the restaurants, I know the hot spots, I know the downtown area, and it feels distant to me. Can you bring it home?
Yeah, in a couple ways. One is it's all over the city. I think sometimes, especially when we talk about Derby in the context of trafficking in Louisville, the first two things I hear is, well, that's all around Churchill Downs and 7th Street, and then it's all in the West End. Can I tell you that right up the road from here, on a major roadway called Bardstown Road, we spend a good amount of our time. Yeah. And so we spend a lot of time in this stretch of town. We spend a lot of time on Hurstbourne. It is right here in our neighborhoods. This isn't a distant, it's just around the Derby problem. It is all around our community, all around the different parts of our city. It was another organization that works in trafficking that opened a safe house about 1.5 years ago that did some research that between 600 and 1,500 different distinct sex ads, like different women, are published every week in the city of Louisville online for trafficking purposes. So between 600 and 1,500, and that was, I believe it was within 1.5 miles just of their property. So it's just East End Louisville every week. And then there's the reality of trafficking. Most people think trafficking and they think, Liam Neeson's Taken. Right. You think somebody rolls up in a windowless van, shoves you in, and then I'm just Liam Neeson, like I have a special set of skills and I will find you. The reality of sex trafficking in the United States is that about 80% of it is going to fall under one of two categories. What we call Romeo and Juliet trafficking, which most people can kind of quickly figure out. It's that boy that woos in a girl that is vulnerable and says, I'll take care of you, I'll help you, I love you, and then begins to traffic and pimp her out. And then the #1, and they alternate, so they're both very high up. The #1 form of sex trafficking in the United States, last I checked, is familial trafficking. The number one perpetrator of familial trafficking in the United States is the biological mother of a child trafficking her own child. Whether it's for drugs or money or whatever it is, caregivers, aunts, uncles, grandparents take kids that are vulnerable for exploitation and traffic them in exchange for goods, and it is the number one form of trafficking here in the United States. The average entry into sex trafficking in in Kentucky is the age of 12, and so I mean, imagine. I'm gonna make it real personal. So, by the way, trigger warning to the extreme when I talk. Just if it wasn't implied, I'm gonna be very broad and not detailed, but. Imagine that if you have a 12-year-old or somebody in that age range, maybe a grandchild, niece, nephew, somebody in their class at their elementary or middle school comes from a bad home life where there's food insecurity. Maybe there's an addicted family member. And one day it's, well, we don't have money for food because we spent it on drugs, or maybe we don't have money for rent because we had to decide between rent and food. But we do have an option. We can sell and exploit this child, and then we can pay our bills, or we can feed our habit. Because there's both sides. We see, I'm trying to carefully craft words to articulate. We see the trafficking of, it's to feed addictions and habits. We have a 16-year-old girl that is in a JCPS school that mom is trying desperately as a single mom to raise 5 kids, and was about to lose their house and couldn't keep their water bill on. And her conversation with her daughter was, well, you're going to fail out of high school anyway, and so you could go do this and give your siblings a chance, because that's how we can pay rent and water. And it's one of those moments, it doesn't count in our statistics because she wasn't technically rescued from exploitation or trafficking, because we stepped up and said, a water bill? We can do that. Mm-hmm. Oh, you're failing out of high school? We can provide you a tutor. And now 2 years later, that girl's about to graduate and is thriving. But, we think when we personalize it, it's in our kids' school. There is a child being sexually exploited and sold and trafficked in exchange for goods. Because anytime you're trading a child sexually and there's an exchange of anything, it's human trafficking. It's happening in the school that our kid is in, right? Whatever school that is here in the city. It's happening to one of their friends, and we don't even see it. And so it's very real. It's very much in our community right now.
So how do you guys find situations like that?
That's why it's all encompassing. Obviously, the outreach side is the bread and butter of what we do. So we're out in alleyways where women are...
Describe that specifically.
Sure.
What do you mean when you talk about the outreach side?
Yeah, so every Thursday is our anti-trafficking and exploitation outreach. We load up a truck full of snack bags and hygiene products, and I'm going to give a shout out to, it's going to be like an infomercial. Jaggers provides us with 50 hot meals every Thursday for our trafficking outreach.
Doesn't Steak and Shake do something similar?
They do not anymore.
They did for a while.
Corporate.
Yuck.
But Jaggers here in town.
If anybody from corporate Steak and Shake is listening, fix that.
But Jaggers provides us with hot meals so we can go out. And what we do is we literally just drive in circles for 4 hours around the spots where we know girls are being picked up and dropped off, because we've learned those areas. And so girls will hang out on that street corner, and they all know us now. They know what time we show up. They know Destiny by name. They know most of our team and go, oh, hey. And we'll feed them, and we'll talk to them, and we'll be like, hey, we're ready. Here's your options. Here's solutions. There's hope. There is a chance for you, and there's these resources for you. And we just build relationships with them. And it takes time. A lot of people, when they think, well, what do you do? Why don't they just say, yes, I want out? Well, we just talked about it. Who's trafficking them? Mom, dad, caregiver, boyfriend. The last person they trusted just ruined their life. So why would they trust me? They don't know me. If the person that's supposed to take care of them ruined their life, how do they know that we're not going to make it worse instead of better? And so it takes time to build that trust and work through that trauma and that bondage. But yeah, so we go out, we'll feed them, we'll high-five them, we'll hug them. Destiny is notorious for finding whoever is bleeding and bandaging and wounds and doing stitches, because these girls can't go to doctors a lot of the time because it'll slow them down. And so we'll just go out to where we know in between clients, they're on that street corner, that's where the next guy's picking them up. And in that 3 to 5 minute window, we're going to love them and encourage them right where they're at and talk about options. And one day, every girl, I believe, is going to look at us and say, yep, today's the day I'm ready. Just 2 weeks ago, we had a girl, probably 2 years in the making. We had talked to her. It felt like every week for 2 years. And on a Monday, the women's space is open, and she walked in, and she came in often for showers and things, and she walked in and she said, I have my bag of stuff. I'm done. Make me vanish. And within 35 minutes, she was in a car on her way to somewhere else where she would never have to step foot in that part of the city again, and she could have a place to live and a therapist and get back on her feet. And so just building those grassroots relationships constantly. We see during a normal season, 30 to 50 women every Thursday night. During last week, we saw 70, because we've already seen the uptick swing for this week.
Interesting.
This week, we'll probably average between 50 and 100 every night, and we will be out 4 days this week. And so instead of one, Derby week is our busiest week of the year for outreaches.
So one of my goals of this conversation is that people listening online and people in the congregation, that some people will want to join you on those outreaches. Talk about what they could expect. If somebody says, Alex, sign me up, I want to make a difference in this area.
Well, first off, and it's just part of our vetting process, is everybody goes on a homeless outreach first. The blunt side is our homeless population, they all know us by name and they love us, and you've been out with us. And to be honest, it's pretty easy and low intensity. But if you've never done a lot of that, it will rattle you sometimes. And we want to make sure you're comfortable with that, because we always say when you enter the trafficking exploitation side, you just ramp up the pressure. They're quicker stops, they're shorter conversations, people are more easily agitated. And so we'll go on a homeless outreach. We'll kind of go through the basics of what we do, how to do it, what our safeties regulations are, because we do have safety regulations. And then we'll go out. You'll jump in the truck with us. We'll drive you downtown for homeless outreach. We'll drive you wherever we feel like it for anti-trafficking outreach, depending on the day. And I won't disclose that on a public setting with too specifics. But we'll just drive around 3-4 hours. We'll pop out of the truck. We'll pray with a woman. We'll love on her. We'll give her options. We'll jump back in the truck, go 100 yards to where the next woman is, hang out, talk with her, pray with her. We're never in a rush. Generally, the trafficking side and homeless side run similar hours, about 6 p.m. to 10 p.m. When they go out. The second we hit the women's trafficking side, we also vet you a little bit more security-wise. So you get a background check. I know they're not popular, but we do have an NDA. It's very specific. It's just victim information. So if you sign on with us, you do sign an NDA. It's not blanket where it's like, you can't say anything, but it's, hey, you can't walk out and be like, I talked to this victim at this place, because what you do is you put their security in danger at that point. So
when you talk about homeless outreach to people without homes, my experience was that you have bags prepped, and then sometimes, not always, but usually a hot meal of some sort. Where did those come? I know we've stuffed bags for you, and actually, as soon as we're done here, we're going to stuff some more bags for hygiene for the Derby. But where did those come from? Yeah,
so hot meals dominantly are at this point donated by our local restaurateurs, which is nice, because we used to cook 250 to 300 hot meals a week. And when I say we, I mean Destiny, in our kitchen. We've killed 2 little residential glass stoves in 4 years.
Seriously, though.
And so, thankfully, those are all dominantly covered. Our snack bags are made, so we have a partnership with Midwest Food Bank in Indianapolis. And so we have a box truck that does a run back and forth to Indy twice a month and gets 6 pallets of food. We partner with another food bank up in northern Kentucky that we run to about twice a month. We have a partnership here with the local bakery that's kind of your commercial bakery, your Sara Lee and your all those donuts and all that you see in a grocery store, and they give us bread and sweets. And so we compile it all. We go through probably $30,000 worth of food every month, $40,000 worth of food every month. We meet on a Sunday night, and by we, I mean Trevor, because I don't do that every week. It's too many things now.
Good for you.
Yeah, he was lecturing me about rest, and I'm like, well, we have, I think we're at 14 events a week now. Something's happening. I can't be at 14 things every week and keep everything running. So yeah, the box truck comes in, we unload it all. We have a bunch of volunteers show up on a Sunday night, and we pack bags for an hour and a half. We just assembly line where you grab a bag and you walk down the table and put one of each item off the pallet in, basically. Tie the bag, drop it in a bin. Bins are put in dry storage for the week, and they all go out.
Yep. I know the Women's Center has been a dream for a long time, and you guys acquired just an unbelievably awesome, like absolutely world-changing building recently. Talk about that.
Yeah, so we date back to about a year ago, get a phone call from an organization that says, hey, we want to meet with you. I'm like, okay, well, cool. I'll meet with you. And ironically, just even in the 2 to 3 days before I get this random phone call, privately with the team, we've been praying and talking like we need a space for women to come in where we get longer than 3 to 5 minutes on a street corner, where they can engage and feel safe. So this organization calls and says, hey, can you meet us? And I'm like, yeah, whatever. I don't know who you are, but I'll show up to a meeting. And so go in, have a breakfast with them, coffee or something one day, and they say, hey, we love your guys' mission. We love it. And we have this property. It's a series of properties. It was a total of 8 property lots on 26th Street. And it took us about $1.2 million to acquire them all. And we're going to sell them. And I was like, okay. And they're like, yep, we're going to sell them for about $900,000. I was like, that's awesome, man. Good for you. Like, I don't know why you're telling me. And he's like, well, we just really felt like the Lord stopped us and that we were supposed to be able to support your mission and that they were for you. We're like, well, I don't have $900,000, so that's a great conversation starter, but it's just not a non-starter. And he's like, well, what can you do? We owe, he came back, I think it was $350,000 on the buildings. Can you do that? And I was like, probably not. But I talked with our board and I talked with our team, and we felt it was from the Lord, and so we scrounged up a loan and managed to buy $1.2 million of valuation property for $350,000.
That's awesome.
Which, you know, it's really nice when you walk in with $700,000 or $800,000 of equity on abandoned buildings at that. And so we bought this property in West Louisville. It included a boarded up, abandoned 2,600-ish square foot house built in 1904. It's a beauty. All the original wood still intact and things. Ironically, we had driven past that boarded up house in a 4-hour visit to Louisville while we were checking out the city. It was one of those things we didn't even share publicly while the sale's going on because we didn't want them to be like, oh, this was their building they wanted. And Destiny was with me, and we'd driven past that house in our scouting of Louisville. And she'd go, with all the women we just passed, that would make a great women's center, wouldn't it? And again, we didn't approach them. They approached us to sell us this building. But it's got 4 vacant lots all side by side. And then we bought a 20,000-ish square foot abandoned church. And so we closed on that in August, remodeled the 2,600 square foot women's house debt-free in 3 months. We opened it in November. It wasn't done. It actually just got finished about a month ago. We opened the final phase of that with our closed closet and things. But we opened that, and it's been a lifesaver. It's been tremendous for our women. We've already seen 17 women step into solutions through that house, whether it's domestic violence or trafficking. I believe 11 of them disclosed trafficking and exploitation. And so it's awesome. And then we have a beautiful blank canvas. It is about 90-year-old church building, all solid stone, new roof. The bones are in great shape. But we'll be remodeling this church building into an outreach center in the coming years that'll include a soup kitchen that's open 5 to 7 days a week, depending on our capacity when it's ready to be opened. My dream is 7 days a week, always. But, then it's like, well, who's going to work 6 days a week? 7 days a week, because I can't do 7 days a week every week. Yeah. And so it's a huge space for a community kitchen to be able to serve people facing food insecurity. There's a ton of what will be classroom space. We'll be doing after school tutoring for kids and youth. Again, try to pull and prevent that cycle. Mm-hmm. It's great to address the cycle and bandage the wounds and minister to people, but how much cooler is the story if it's, hey, we pulled this woman out of trafficking and we made sure her child never had to go through it and endure that trauma and all of those things. So creating a safe, holistic space that addresses food insecurity with a soup kitchen and kids' classrooms and youth engagement and the women's house, and it's all in the same stretch, all together right there in the West End.
So I want to double back to the idea that, and I can only speak for myself, but I think that I can sum up how a lot of people feel, is that the issues you're talking about, the people you're talking about, feel out there. And to me, it takes a conscious effort to bridge that gap. Mm-hmm. It takes some kind of a wake-up call or some kind of New Year's resolution or spiritual revelation. And I think about Jesus and his words about the parable of the sheep and the goats, which I find the most terrifying portion of Scripture.
I don't disagree.
Talk about Jesus' heart for those people and how, motivate us.
Yeah. Jesus came for the lost and the hurting and the poor and the destitute and the broken. And I think sometimes we think of ourselves, right? I'm going to come back and talk about Good Samaritan story in Luke chapter 10. You read that portion of Scripture, and I'm going to give a brief summary for you. Religious leader stands up and says, what's the greatest commandment? Jesus says, well, what do you say it is? And he says, love the Lord your God with all your heart, mind, soul, strength, and love your neighbor as yourself. Mm-hmm. And the guy literally says, trying to be smart because he wanted an excuse, said, well, who's my neighbor? And I think that's the number one question we have to ask. Because a lot of times we go, well, who's my neighbor anyway? I can make a good excuse. I can make a good argument. No, they're way over there. And so Jesus tells this story, and he talks about the religious leader passing on the other side of the road and the temple assistant passing on the other side of the road. And then this guy who's really kind of public enemy number one, the Samaritan, stopping, seeing a man in a ditch, tending to his wounds, picking him up, taking him out of the ditch, taking him to an inn, and paying the cost for him to get better. And so there's several components here. Number one is every single religious scholar that I have read, and it's been a lot of them on Luke chapter 10, says that the audience Jesus is talking to believes that the man that was attacked by bandits and put in the ditch is there because it's his own fault. Mm-hmm. And so excuse number one that we hear from people is, well, the person in homelessness is there because of their own actions. Right. They're addicted to a substance because they made poor decisions, or they're in trafficking or being exploited because they made poor decisions. Well, guess what? Jesus already addressed that. He already told his audience, it could be because of their own decisions, but that doesn't change the fact that they're your neighbor and you are not just called, but really required to do something about it. Yeah. And then there's just the frame of reference of the church, which is, I always say, so often when I read Scripture, I have to remind myself that most of the time, in context, I'm the Pharisee. Right? Everybody, when we read Scripture, we're like, I'm the disciple, or I'm the poor person that Jesus is helping. Well, then who's the religious person? Who's the person that's missing the mark? Because most people were missing the mark, and I don't think there's any way that 100% of the time, I'm the guy that has it all right. And so how many times have I been in the shoes of the guy that walked on the other side of the road? Kids are late for school, or I'm late for soccer practice, or I'm late for church, and we use excuses to roll past somebody that is in desperate need of help. And it's just not the gospel. Jesus is literally saying, turn off the roads, turn away from whatever task you're working on, turn away from whatever priority you have, because the only priority for anyone, whether they think they're the lowest person on planet Earth or they're the lofty religious leader, tends to people who are hurting, and make sure not only you're meeting their immediate needs, but that you are walking with them, loving them to a solution, and paying whatever cost it is. Right? That's what the Samaritan says. Here's payment, take care of him, and if there's any other cost, just tell me what it is. I'm going to pay every cost until that person is whole and healthy and able to walk into the future that God has for them, because they're made in the image of God. That is the calling of the believer. Jesus literally says, great, now go and do likewise. Greatest commandment, go and do likewise. Go love that person, not just when you have time, but when you're in a hurry. Not just when it's tragedy, but when it's their own fault for their actions. Not just love them and help bandage them and feed them while they're in homelessness, but take them to the solution, pay whatever costs it take. And I look at it, we've never said no to a person who genuinely wants help. If they say that I want to walk into a solution out of homelessness, we will lay out all of the options. If an option doesn't fit, we will find one, or we will make one fit, because we're going to pay whatever it costs. And if there's a day that we go bankrupt helping people, then praise God, because it was never ours anyway.
Yeah. So from the pulpit, typically at Daylight Church, I'll make a statement pretty often that we're not talking about a do-better type faith, where somebody hears Alex talking today and thinks, I've got to do this thing as some kind of appeasement towards God. Talk about, so in 1 Corinthians 13, it talks about how if you give all your money to the poor but have not love, you are nothing. Talk about like the Spirit of Christ and how Christ compels us not to be good givers, but to be so filled with love that it overflows out of us. And talk about love for the community you're talking about.
Yeah. I don't ever...
And I can only ask you that because I've talked to you enough to know that that's where you're at.
Yeah, I never once will ask somebody to serve because they feel obligated. If you feel obligated, you don't have the right heart, because the Good Samaritan wasn't obligated.
Right.
He was driven, it literally says, Jesus says, he was driven and pulled by compassion. There was just an overflowingness in his heart of that person needs help, and I love them. And so we have conversations all the time of when we look at people, what do you see? Do you see an opportunity to get in God's good graces? Or do you see somebody that is broken and hurting that you can help and that you can love and that you can care about? If you don't care about the people, then don't waste your time serving, right? That's the do better is we'll serve them even if you don't care about them. If you serve them but don't care about them, then you don't accomplish anything. I hope I'm answering your question well. I'm going to circle it.
It seems to me that there's kind of a chicken and the egg problem.
Yeah.
Do you serve people because you love them, or do you love them as you serve them? And my thought is, regardless of where you're at on legitimate compassion, stepping in and doing something will create compassion.
Oh, 100%.
Yeah.
Yeah. And so that is the side of, if you want to care, eventually you will.
Yeah.
Because we have that conversation all the time with people who are like, well, I don't necessarily feel compassion for them, but I want to. I want to see a change. I want to love people better. 100%. Come do it. And start hearing people's stories and start walking through life with them. And suddenly, you're going to have a whole lot more compassion for them. Because I could detail stories. And when I detail stories, people don't, you're not thinking in the frame reference of, oh, that person did these things and put themselves in that situation. You're hearing the story and the why. And you're like, oh, my heart's completely changed toward that story. And so when you come and do it, but at the same time, that's still a desire to, I want to know, I want to make a difference, I want to help, even if I'm still not sure I'm expressing compassion.
Right.
If it is, I'm going to show up and I'm going to check the box, and I don't care. I'm coming because I'm going to check the box. That's a whole nother problem. Mm-hmm. And we see that where it's like, you can ask people like, hey, do you want to hear their stories? No. I'm feeding people because Jesus told me I have to feed people, and I want to make sure I get my ticket to heaven. And we don't want that either, where it's like, hey, if there's a barrier where you're like, I don't know that I understand this. You know how you gain understanding is you hang out with people with that. Mm-hmm. You don't understand trafficking or the experiences of people in trafficking. Come out with me and listen to some stories from ladies, because they'll tell them better than I ever will. Same with homelessness. You don't understand homelessness, come hang out with people. You don't understand how to love the homeless, come hang out with them, and you will develop a love for them. Mm-hmm. At the same time, if you don't have a desire to learn and to know, then we have that problem of almost a legalistic, I'm just here to make sure that Jesus sees that I earned my checkbox this week. Mm-hmm. If that's our motive, then we're not going to develop compassion necessarily. Now, God will do the miraculous, right, even when we come with our ulterior motives, as he's proven in all of us at some point in our lives. But we genuinely want to say, hey, maybe I don't get it. Maybe I'm even bitter or biased against this population, but I don't want to be because Jesus loves them. Then that will develop for sure.
It reminds me of the story of the person that came to Jesus and said, I'm having trouble believing. Help me in my unbelief.
Yeah. Same
with love.
Yeah.
So we're out of time. Give us the 1-minute version of what people can do to help.
Yeah. Well, you're in Louisville, so serve, serve, serve. I always say serve and pray and serve, and then everything in between. We need prayers. We need people who say, I want to plug in. Maybe I want to go once a month on a homeless outreach. Maybe you're like, I'm going to go 3 times a week. And praise God, we have those people. I think that they're great and probably slightly insane, but that's cool because they fit in with me. And so, serve and get involved, whether it's on a homeless outreach, a trafficking outreach, or you just want to be in the pantry in the background. We need people all across the board. And so it's a great opportunity to help people in need. Pray for our people we serve. Pray for our city and community. And if you want to partner individually, I always will asterisk on a church end. Daylight's a great partner, and we're thankful for them. There are people in the room. Never direct, oh, hey, this is where I'm giving from a church. I want to give to this instead. Don't do that. Because the church is meeting needs all over the city. But if you're like, man, it tugs on my heart and I want to do something extra, I want to do something in addition, and you want to do it directly to Hope Rescued, we have that information and always do need help.
I'm assuming you have a mailing list or something like that in the back people
can
sign up for.
So
there's a table in the back if anybody's interested in knowing more.
We have an email mailing list. We have free T-shirts.
If people are listening online, how do they find you?
Yeah, hoperescued.com. It's always past tense, so hoperescued, RESCUED.com. It has all of our information. It has information request buckets. It has the giving and partner information. All of that is in there.